Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of How Did We Not Know That? My name's Jack,
And I'm Nat.
and today Nat is going to tell us about the history of Russia, I believe, because I peeked at your docs.
Yeah, today I'm talking about Rasputin and the last Russian emperor. Um,
Is it Rasputin or Rasputin?
I thought it was Putin.
I only ask because in Just Dance 3, there's that song called Rasputin, and it goes, rah, rah, Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen.
What?
So his name is Rasputin in that.
Wait, okay, actually I'm gonna check this really quick. Okay, apparently it's Rasputin. Okay.
Okay,
I think
Rasputin.
they were just yeah.
Rasputin. They probably just tried to make it rhyme. It's fine.
Because poutine is like the food, the Canadian food. It's very good, but
Oh, I do like Putin. Or not Putin, Poutine. Okay.
take like that audio clip.
Ray is gonna come back for me during my campaign.
Exactly. Okay, so besides the Just Dance 3 song, what have you heard about Rasputin?
So from the song, he is no, actually I do know a little bit. I think he was a shaman, as the people would say. So he was like a medicine man and a bit of a psychic. And I think he was guiding or giving guidance to the Russian family. And he said, if you ever betray me or don't listen to me, you will all die, or something like that. He gave a prophecy like that. And then, sure enough, I think something happened to him. And then the entire family met like its downfall. So,
Wow, that's the whole story. Okay, thanks.
oh no.
I'm totally just kidding. No, yeah, but you got it exactly correct. He was like this weird, not weird, but he had this very mysterious aura to him, and he was like this mystical healer. And yeah, he did warn the Russian Imperial family that that if they ever left him, they would die. And yeah, so let's see how that turned out. But so you know a lot because he's like a really big figure, I feel like, in not pop culture, but I feel like a lot of people know about Rasputin, even if they don't know a lot about Russian history.
Yeah, I think you've heard the name, surely.
Yeah, because he's like a wild character. But his name's Grigory Rasputin, and he was born in Siberia in 1869, and he was raised as a peasant. And later, when he was younger, I think around 19 years old, he married a local woman named Praskovia Dobrovina, and he fathered.
Good job on that.
These are my people, so I have to.
Are you Russian?
I'm you. Okay, my family says we're Ukrainian. The borders change,
I literally am also, my great grandpa was born on the border of the Ukraine and formerly Czechoslovakia, but he identifies as Slovakian.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
We're one and the same.
Long lost cousins or
Probably. Continue, please.
Yeah, okay. So he fathered three surviving children, and him and his family lived and worked on the farm together. But then in 1892, he left the farm to spend several months at a monastery, and there he earned the nickname the Mad Monk. And technically, he wasn't actually a monk because he never actually took the holy orders. And also, he was very passionate about religion, but he his I guess his personal life conflicted a lot with his religious piety. So he continued to see his wife and family, even though most holy men usually give up their past lives once they join the monastery. And he was known, everyone knew he was a very big fan of alcohol and brothels. He was always drunk and always having affairs. He did not try to keep it secret. So even
That's not just for monks, that's like a general thing is like
Yeah, and like so he was like, "Oh, I'm a holy man," and people were like, maybe not." And he,
right. What denomination, can I ask?
Russian Orthodox. Like,
Okay.
it's like Orthodox Christian? Yeah, Orthodox Christian? Okay. Yeah. They're not
Okay.
like Orthodox Catholic? No.
Yeah, I'm sure it sounds different.
Yeah, but Russian Orthodox. But yeah, so Rasputin had a very memorable personality, and his passion for religion as well as his strong charisma brought him to the attention of some like Russian Orthodox clergymen and other senior members of the imperial family. And through those connections, he was then introduced to Tsar Nicholas II and his wife Alexandra. So before I get into that, I just want to like give a background about what Russia is like at this time. When basically Russia was in political turmoil when Nicholas II became Tsar in 1894, and also like Tsar is just like kind of another word for emperor. It's like the Russian word. And so he became Tsar in 1894. His father had ruled Russia with an iron fist. He was not a great guy. He forced everyone in the empire to speak Russian, even though like there are several languages spoken there. And then there's no freedom of the press. And then there were also very weak political institutions, kind of like we talked about in the Middle East episode. Like the judicial system was very corrupt and all that classic stuff. And so Nicholas II was not prepared, and he didn't want to become czar. Actually, like when he was crowned, he asked his advisor, "What is going to happen to me, to all of Russia? I'm not prepared to be czar. I never wanted to become one."
Oh
So he
no.
yeah, it's kind of sad. He was like he really didn't want,
Yeah.
but he was the heir to the throne, so he did.
What age was he when he had to take over? Sorry.
I actually have no idea. Let me look that up.
Because I don't know. I feel like if you're older, maybe you would have been groomed for it. Hopefully, you wouldn't be that nervous to rule an entire nation.
Yeah. He was 26. So
Okay, like you're grown enough. I guess like your dad didn't talk to you about.
his dad like really didn't have a good relationship with him, and like he did not.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so he was just like he was starting off at a low point. Like
Mm-hmm.
um, he was not happy to be there, and then so he assumes power. He's 26, so he's pretty young, and he is not really well liked by the Russian people. So while he's czar, they Russia gets involved in the Russo-Japanese War. They're fighting Japan, and the people there wasn't a lot of public support for this war. Like they didn't agree with it, and they didn't like that they were like fighting and risking all their lives and resources. And then in 1905, his government. Oh, also Japan won this war. Sorry, so they also like lost this unpopular war, so they're even more pissed. And then later in 1905, Nicholas II's government massacred about 100 unarmed protesters during a peaceful assembly. So the public, they're like, "What the heck? You're."
Oh no.
It was really bad. And then like on top of this, he didn't have a civil relationship with the Duma, and the Duma is like the Russian equivalent of Congress. It's like their representative branch, and so he didn't have a good relationship with them. They were like, "We hate you too."
Oh no. Wait, so is this Russian government is constitutional monarchy?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
like the emperor, and then they also have a representative branch.
Okay.
Yeah,
Why does everyone not like him? Does he like just do a terrible job when he starts?
yeah, like well, he's like fighting all these wars and then killing all these like innocent civilians. And he's just like I don't think he's a very good like public speaker. He just doesn't have like that charisma about him because like he's also like pretty young and he's just like unenthusiastic. Like people can tell I think that he doesn't want to be there, and they're like okay, and they're starting to get sick of the monarchy. They're like we like, why are you even ruling us then? Like, just leave. um,
Yeah.
that comes into play later. And like I think the one of the biggest reasons for people's hatred towards him was in 1914 when Russia was drawn into World War I, but they were very unprepared to fight. And Russia actually suffered the largest number of deaths in World War I. And this is literally insane. Like, I can't comprehend how many people died. So there were 1.8 million military deaths and then 1.5 million civilian deaths. So literally
What?
2 million Russians died in World War I.
Oh my gosh.
Like, so Russia is in shambles at the time, and they're like blaming the emperor, and so they don't like him.
Yeah. Wow. Why so many civilians? Were they just like there's just battles like in civilian area?
Yeah, I think so. I weren't there like oh my gosh, I need to like refresh my memory on World War I history, but I think there weren't there like a lot of blockades, and then a lot of people like died of starvation because
Oh, yes.
was it World War II? Oh gosh,
Probably both. Both wars.
yeah, but I think a lot of people died from starvation, which is like
Okay.
which is awful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I heard about this. It was like yeah, basically that the army was like did not learn how to fight at all, so they kind of just like got led into massacre and then
Yeah,
yeah, that just like ruined.
they were not prepared to fight because they recently lost like the Russo-Japanese War, and
Mm.
then they entered World War I, which is like oh shit, or it's like oh shoot, it's like
It's like yeah. Wait, what was the Russo-Japanese war about? Were they fighting off of for land or what?
yeah, I think it was like territorial because there's like a disputed island.
Yeah, the Krugman Islands or something? No. Yeah, it's the Kuril Islands.
Islands, yeah, yeah. Everyone should read Silly Isles and then read the chapter about the Kuril Islands because that's, or just like do your own research because it's very interesting because both Japan and Russia claim the island, which is,
Yeah, The Silly Isles by Eric Campbell.
yeah,
He's a great journalist.
read and then you learn a lot too. So, yeah, so this is basically this is what Russia looks like at the time. And they're not in a good spot. And then like a lot of again, like there's a huge division between the peasantry and like the working class and then the noble elites of Russia. Like there's a huge wealth gap. So the monarchy, like all the peasants, a lot of the peasants hate the monarchy because they're like just like so extremely wealthy and they're living in like extreme lavish and they're like what the heck, I can barely afford my next meal and like here you are in this palace. So there people are upset about that. um and so let me get into the imperial family now. So basically the imperial family consisted of Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their four daughters, Olga, Maria, Tatiana, and Anastasia, and then their only son Alexei, who was the heir to the throne. And Alexei suffered from hemophilia, which is a rare disorder where your blood doesn't clot. So like if he got even like a tiny cut, he would bleed to death. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's known as the royal disease because it happens a lot in royal families because of the inbreeding for pure blood.
Ruh-roh. Yeah, yeah. So he has hemophilia, and he had been in poor health since he was born. And the imperial couple had consulted more like unconventional spiritual advisors before, but when they met Rasputin, everything changed. Sorry, my water bottle. So when they met Rasputin, everything changed because Rasputin's healing process proved to be beneficial to Alexei's condition, and they saw like immediate improvements in his health. So they had like gone through all these doctors, all these spiritual healers, and then nothing had worked. Finally, Rasputin came, and they saw progress in Alexei's condition, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like you're amazing," you know?
What did he do? Do you know?
Yeah, so I'll tell you right now. So basically, like there are a lot of myths surrounding Rasputin, and one of those myths is that he had magical healing powers. Obviously, like, or sorry, I shouldn't say obviously. This is not actually true. Many historians believe that the reason Alexei's condition improved was because Rasputin insisted that other doctors stay away from him, and because of limited knowledge on medicine at the time, Russian doctors were giving him aspirin. They were just prescribing Alexei aspirin to cure his disease, and because that was kind of known as the cure-all at the time. But aspirin actually thins the blood, which makes his hemophilia condition worse. So then once the doctor stopped giving him aspirin, they were able to see like improvement. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of the reason why his condition improved. And also just like Rasputin's personality and his aura like painted this picture of success because he was able to read the couple's inner hopes, and like he told them exactly what they wanted to hear. And he formed like a really tight relationship with Alexandra. He was able to soothe all her anxieties, and he encouraged Nicholas to have more confidence in his role as a czar. So like he knew all of their weaknesses basically, and like he was like, "No, I'm here to help you. Like you need me, you know." Uh,
Yeah, he's just like a modern day therapist slash people person.
like, basically, he knew how to like work with people, and he knew how to get what he wanted from people. So and so this is like kind of where his role as a healer transitions to like a much more powerful figure in the imperial court, because like he's just there to cure Alexei, but like obviously he stayed for a lot longer. So there are also a lot of myths around this topic. A lot of people think that he was like a secret puppet master for the imperial couple and actually secretly ran Russia. Um, and like because of his odd nature and then his constant presence in the royal court, rumors about this spread very quickly within Russia, and everyone was like, "What is he up to? Like, this guy is so suspicious." In reality, like he did offer military advice occasionally to Nicholas II, but it like his ideas never actually helped him. Like it never actually proved to be like good ideas. So yeah, he didn't have a huge influence over the military. However, he did have a lot of influence over Alexandra, and Nicholas was away fighting a lot, like fighting all these wars. And so Rasputin did have enough time to appoint his own church ministers and other public officials, and Alexandra would dismiss ministers who were skeptical of Rasputin. So there was like, he did have a lot of influence in that regard. And so obviously, this really upset the other Russian elites and nobles, which comes into play later because like at the time, so I really like reading like old Russian literature, like Anna Karenina and like Brother Karamazov, and like in all these books, like they just really they really crap on Russian elites basically, because at this time like the nobles have so much influence over the imperial family, and like they're all like cousins and they're all trying to like gain power and like rule Russia. And yeah, so it's like pretty corrupt at the time, and it's not very democratic. So yeah, again, like peasants really hated that aspect of the monarchy. Um, and yeah, and then before I move on, there are also like a lot of rumors that Rasputin was having a secret affair with Alexandra, but there's actually no evidence of this. And these rumors about their like relationship, they also began early, and they spread very quickly throughout Russia because like of his reputation for like sexual deviancy and his frequent visits to brothels. He was also having affairs with other high society ladies. And while Alexandra did embroider shirts for him, and she and her friends were invited to his home sometimes, like there's no actual evidence that they were having an affair. So, yeah.
Okay. So that line in the song is just speculation where they said he was the lover of the Russian queen.
Yeah. That's like kind of like people like joke about it now, and they're like, "Oh, that's why he had so much influence." And it's like, I don't know. I don't think it was true. I like just a lot of rumors. There's just so many rumors about him because he was such a weird, unpredictable guy, and like people didn't know the extent of like his like powers. They thought he was like this magical man. So
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of this is happening behind closed doors, so no one really knows unless you're there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean that's true. Like, well, we don't really know, but yeah. And so yeah, that's kind of like a big like an important thing to remember about Rasputin is that the Russian people were scared of him because they didn't know who he was. Like he called himself a holy man, even though he had no formal affiliation with the Russian Orthodox Church, and he was very passionately religious, but he was also a huge drunk, and he was constantly having affairs with women. And then he declared himself the self-appointed representative of the Russian peasantry, but he was also like living with the Imperial family, like in this palace. And so they're like, okay, you're not really a peasant anymore. And so nobody knew what was true and what was false, what was myth, what was fact. Um, yeah, and like the extent of his grip on the Imperial family. So it was really easy for rumors to be spread about him. And so after the Russian Revolution, which like spoiler alert, it's happening soon and I'll talk about it later, but his life was exaggerated and embellished by his enemies in order to propagandize his life and kind of make him into this like evil villain, like this evil sorcerer, you know? So a lot of
Oh.
aspects of his life have been exaggerated a lot. And that's like kind of the image that has stuck over time, you know? Because
Okay, but people did that. I guess people did that to um like get the local Russians to not like support him. Like what's the point of doing that?
well, I'll get into it later, but basically they're like, um, well, okay, yeah, his enemies were like, oh, like look at this guy who has this control over the imperial couple, and he's actually the one who decides what's going on in Russia, like not the people. And they're like, oh, the imperial family is so corrupt. So that's kind of they're like they were corrupted by this evil sorcerer guy. So I think that's what his
Oh, it's like propaganda for overthrowing excuse me, the monarchy.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I'll like go more into detail because that's like oh, it gets complicated. But yeah, but that's like his enemies. That was his enemies' argument, kind of. And so yeah, like another reason why these rumors spread so quickly about Rasputin was because Nicholas II had actually given a lot more rights to the press, so they were free to print all these rumors about Rasputin. And it was not only in Russia, it was overseas as well. Like a lot of people knew about him just because he was like this wild guy, and like a lot of people wanted to read about him, you know. There were even rumors that he was committing treason with a German enemy and he had started the cholera epidemic in St. Petersburg. But like, this is obviously not true. But yeah, it's just like,
Is it? Is it? We don't really know. Did he?
I mean, yeah, that could be another like conspiracy. Rasputin start the cholera epidemic. But yeah, like to me, it's like it sounds like it's like tabloid magazines, you know. He's like the first like celebrity where they're like spreading all these like crazy rumors like oh my god what's he gonna do next or like who is Rasputin, you know.
Yeah.
I imagine it. um and okay, so I actually like didn't know the details of this, um but Rasputin dies obviously. But his he was murdered, and it's a wild
Oh.
story. Rasputin was a very controversial person, and he was hated by a lot of people. So elites hated him because of the influence he had over the imperial couple and how he ruined the reputation of the monarchy because it just made them look silly. They're like, oh, they're weak. They can let this crazy guy come and like take over, you know?
Yeah, like puppets and stuff.
Yeah,
But then again, did it really make them look worse? Because from the sound of it, they didn't look that good. At least Nicholas wasn't doing too hot before Rasputin.
I think like the big problem with him was like at the time, the Russian Orthodox Church is has a lot of power in Russia, and like Russians are very religious, and so Rasputin like represented a lot of different sins. And so they're like, oh, this sinful man is in the monarchy, like he's destroying the purity of the monarchy, you know? Because like even if you don't agree with the imperial like couples politics and like Nicholas II's decisions, you know, like this was like different because they're like, oh, this sinful man is like corrupting the monarchy. Yeah. So and then like nobles hated him because they are used to having control over the couple, but then now Rasputin has like kind of like claimed his territory. So they're like, what the heck? Now the couple's not listening to us; they're listening to this random guy. And also, like, this is like wild. In June 1914, a beggar woman stabbed Rasputin in the stomach because he was quote unquote preying on the innocent. So like I don't even want to know. He was probably being an awful person. So she literally goes up and stabs him. He's like so close to death. At one point he's like bleeding out and he's like about to die, but somehow he still makes a full recovery and he's like fine. Like he survived.
What? He's like a character.
I'm like, this guy does not sound real. And so people are like, oh my God, it's because he's magic, you know?
Okay. Hmm.
And so this kind of like feeds into all like the myths about him. And so
Well, yeah, how did he if he's bleeding out?
I don't know, it was just like a medical miracle, I guess.
Yeah, maybe he has the opposite of hemophilia and then like his blood clots so fast.
His blood clots so fast, he has all this extra blood, but okay, just wait until like listen to what I'm about to tell you because like if you think that is wild, the story of his murder is literally insane. I like could not believe it when I was reading it. So basically on December 30th, 1916, Felix Yusupov, which I know I'm mispronouncing that last name. He's the richest man in Russia and he's also the husband of Nicholas II's only niece. So he's tied to the family. Um, and so he invites Rasputin over at his house to have dinner with him and his friends. And Yusupov, he was very privileged and he lived a pretty aimless life. Like he was just some rich guy, you know. And he thought that getting rid of Rasputin would give Nicholas II a final chance to restore the reputation and prestige of the monarchy. And then the Tsar would be open to advice of his extended family and nobles like Yusupov again. So he's like, okay, we need to get rid of this guy. And he also just like wanted to reinvent himself as a patriot and a man of action because he's like, I'm doing this for the betterment of Russia. Like I'm doing this for the Russian people because like he like refused to fight in the wars. Like he didn't serve and people were like, okay, you're trash. So he's like,
Oh.
I'm actually like doing stuff.
Yeah, but even like with Rasputin advising the monarchy, did the situation get better for common people in Russia or no?
Not like to my knowledge, not really. Like Rasputin kind of disappointed people who like his allies. He appointed them to like official positions. So he wasn't really there for the Russian people. He wasn't like, oh, I'm here to make the working class better. He was kind of just there to benefit his own self. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
have my allies in place. So yeah.
Hmm. So either way, like I don't think that's super patriotic. Like I'm not gonna benefit from it. So
But here's the thing: is like Yusupov is thinking from the perspective of a noble person. He's like, oh, I'm doing this for the nobles of Russia, like all.
okay, not for the common people. All right, that's a different definition of patriotism
Yeah,
than what I have. So
more like classism. He's like, he does not care about the working
yeah.
class Russian people.
Yeah.
This is what Russia's like at the time. It's very divided, which we'll get into in a bit. But okay,
That sucks. Well, also too, sorry, going back, you said there were like 7 different languages before they were forced to speak Russian. So, yeah, it sounds like it's not this big monolithic country
no,
where everyone is like united to start.
not at all. It's just like this huge empire, and like Russia is so big. Like each region is so different. Like there's different languages, different religions, different cultures, and so it's hard to unite the people as a whole, which is like that kind of explains like Russian politics and like Russian history. It's like, how do we unite all these people? But
Hmm.
yeah,
What's the population on Russia?
it's not huge. Let me Google it. Um,
Yeah, I thought that Siberia was where you got sent for prison because I thought you could not live in Siberia. But you just said someone was born, like Rasputin was born in Siberia.
like during the Soviet Union, I think there are a lot of prisons in Siberia.
Okay, yeah, Fiddler on the Roof, like he gets sent to Siberia.
Yeah, but there are 144.5 million people in Russia, which is
Okay.
that's like a third of the US's population, and Russia is huge, but a lot of it is uninhabitable because it's so freaking cold. So
Yeah, it's probably just like forest and
it's like
stuff.
ice. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, so it's like, and everyone's very spread out too, so it's also harder to unite people. And yeah, so Rasputin goes to dinner at Yusupov's house, and a few days later, his battered body is found in the Neva River. And so, yeah, it's wild. And so the details of his murder are a bit unclear. So in his 1928 memoir, Yusupov actually wrote about how he and his friends killed Rasputin because, like, to him, yeah, because to him, he was like, "This, I did a good deed for the country," and like, a lot of people ended up, all the other elites like praised him for it. They're like, "You did a great thing, like, good job." Like, he didn't serve any time, you know.
Oh my gosh, what?
And so he said, basically, what he said happened was that he served Rasputin a platter of cakes and several glasses of wine that had been poisoned with potassium cyanide. And to his surprise, Rasputin was unaffected by the poison. So him and his friends are like, "Oh, okay, I guess we got to go to plan B." So then they just start pulling out their revolvers and they shoot Rasputin multiple times and he like collapses to the ground. But then when they're like dragging his body out, he like revives and he escape, and they're like, what the heck, we still can't.
Stop.
So then like this part is like kind of awful. They beat Rasputin viciously and then they tie him up and throw him into the freezing cold river because it's like December, you know. And they said that he was still alive when they threw him in the river. um
I would be like, it's a demon, kill it.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the whole thing. So people are like, "Oh my God, this guy was not human. Like he is some like demon, right?" Like that's
Yeah.
over.
No, scary if he was actually a demon. Oh my gosh, I just got chills.
Okay, well, listen to this, because a year later, Rasputin's daughter, who, fun fact, so she flees Russia after the revolution, and then she becomes a circus lion tamer, which is like, what the heck? What story? So
Live your best life. I didn't know he had a daughter.
yeah, he had 3 children.
Oh,
A lot more, but only 3 of them survived. Um, so
survive.
her, yeah, they like, because it like infant mortality rate was like high in Russia, so sad.
Oh, okay.
She writes her own book, and she said a year later, and she says that Yusupov, his story is fake. She said that her father hated sweets, so he would never have eaten the food. And she also pointed out that the autopsy showed that he died from gunshots to the head from a close range and not from like drowning in the river. And so she argued that Yusupov just wanted to turn the murder into a story about good versus evil to sell books and also improve his reputation. Like, oh, don't worry, guys, I got rid of this evil demon. Like, you can thank me, you know?
Okay, fooled me. I was convinced. I was like, oh my gosh,
Dude,
Rasputin was a demon. But okay, that makes sense.
yeah, I was like, what the heck? Like, that's wild. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's probably fake. So
Hmm.
yeah, so people think that like he was just shot in the head and then they threw him into the river. Like he's dead.
Yeah.
Um,
My gosh, so terrible.
kind of gruesome. Well, okay, yeah, it's gonna get a little bit worse later when we get to like the Romanov family.
It's not done. What?
I'm almost done though, but yeah,
Okay,
just like a tiny little bit.
no rush. It's fine. It's interesting.
So responses to his death were pretty mixed because the elites were happy, and like I said earlier, they were like praising the killers. But actually, like his death, Rasputin's death, didn't lead to radical changes in Nicholas and Alexandra's politics. Like they were like, oh, Russia's gonna be better now, and like that didn't really happen. And then peasants mourned him as one of their own. They saw his murder as yet another example of the nobles controlling the czar. And to the Bolsheviks, which recap, like Bolsheviks are like Russian, it's the word for communists. So they're the communist group in Russia. And so they believe that Rasputin symbolized the corruption of the imperial court. And they said that his murder was seen as an attempt by the nobility to hold on to power at the continued expense of the proletariat. And the proletariat is another word for working class. So they're like, Rasputin was working class and the nobles killed him for their own benefits. Like, we don't like the nobles, like, let's overthrow them. So actually, like, after the revolution, the provisional government leader, his name was Alexander Kerensky, he actually said that without Rasputin, there would have been no Lenin. So, like, Vladimir Lenin was the leader of the Bolsheviks in this in this revolution. So I'm just gonna do like a quick 1 minute overview of the Russian Revolution of 1917. So remember how we talked about earlier, Rasputin was like, if I die, you guys are all going down, like to the Imperial family. 15 months later, his prophecy comes true. So basically, the Bolsheviks, which are they're led by Vladimir Lenin, they seize power and they overthrow the Duma and also the Romanov Dynasty. And the dynasty had been ruling for over 300 years. And so
Okay, question. I'm so sorry. What's a dynasty? If they're overthrowing multiple dynasties, isn't that just like time periods or?
it's like the dynasty is like one royal family, like the monarchy,
Oh,
the kingdom as a whole, but then the dynasty, there's like the, why can't I think of any other,
oh,
like,
it's like related bloods to.
the family,
Okay,
the British, who are like, what's the current British dynasty? I don't know what their last name is.
William
Yeah,
or
but
no, that's his first name. Ugh. Princess Diana, Meghan Markle.
yeah, but I don't know why I'm blanking on every dynasty name. But basically, it's like, oh, like this one family, like that's the name for their whole like family. So the Romanovs is like the one linear family that they've passed down the throne to for 300 years. So they've been ruling for like, oh, like Chinese dynasty. Like there's like what, like the Ming dynasty.
Yeah, but see, that's the dynasty I thought was like a time period. I didn't realize that it's like a bloodline.
It's the bloodline, but it's been used to mark different time periods because normally, like when you switch dynasties, when you switch families, that's because like you're switching like political views and
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
How
So
did I not know that?
how did I not know that? But yeah, so the Bolsheviks overthrow the Romanov dynasty and they later become the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. And so Nicholas II was dethroned and his family was imprisoned. And they tried to gain asylum in France or Britain because Alexandra was actually the granddaughter of Queen Victoria, but they were refused. Um, okay,
They were refused, but she's the granddaughter of Queen Victoria?
yeah, it's like very scandalous. It's like what the,
Wow.
they really just like turned their back on them. But they didn't, no one thought that they would be killed. Basically they were like, the family was put into exile, they were like imprisoned. But at first, like they were just taken to another like huge house and they took like 40 of their servants with them and they could take like most of their belongings. So they're like, okay, you're not in power, but like you could still kind of live a comfortable life. This lasted for a little bit and then they kept getting moved from house to house. Eventually they ended up at this one house, Ipatiev house. I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, this is where things like take a turn for the worse. They show up to this house, they can't bring any of their servants with. There are no bed linens. It was very dusty. There weren't enough plates or silverware. And a wall had been built around the house so they couldn't see like outside. You're just like in this prison. and they were like hassled a lot by the soldiers. So they were like, okay, but even then, they didn't think they would actually be murdered. Um,
Okay, honestly though, that living situation, I'm pretty sure there are some peasants living that way too.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like, yeah, that's true. Um, but yeah, so I'm not gonna get into the details about their murder. I'm just because
Oh, please do. Why not?
it's like really gruesome, but
Oh,
I
okay.
will just give an overview because like if you'd like to learn more, you can look it up, but the details are like really painful to hear. But basically on July 17th, 1918, the Romanov family is awoken and they're told to prepare for another move. And all of a sudden, the soldiers just start shooting at them. Um, and like they're in this tiny room and you can see photos of the room after. It's like horrifying. Um, they're like this is like back in the old days when guns are like really weird and they don't work all the time. And so they're like shooting at them, but they're unsuccessful. Like they don't kill them right away. You know, like they maybe like the bullets will hit them, but like they won't be fatal shots. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's like, okay, wait, let me just make sure my facts are correct. So Nicholas already murdered or no?
No, so they're
Okay.
seven of them are in the same room. Like they're all
Okay.
together.
All
And
right. So the Bolsheviks are like, get out of here. And they get out and they're fleeing to all these houses, right? And then the Bolsheviks get them at this house. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now they're at this house and they're like, now let's kill them.
Yeah. And it was
Why?
well, that's like I mean, there's a lot of speculation. Like people are also like so confused, like why did they shoot them all of a sudden? Like it really doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. Like why they would kill them all. And like just like their death is really sad because like shooting doesn't work. So then they start like beating and like stabbing the family members. And it's really sad because like they don't want to kill the children at first, like, so they go after their parents, but then they're like, "Okay, the children have to die." So, like, the children
Why? No, they don't. What? No one had to die. What?
but, like, literally, like, so this attack lasts 20 minutes. So can you imagine? It's like it's not, like, just a quick kill, like, it's
That's terrible. They're like literally like you have to watch your parents get killed and then they're gonna kill you and you're a child.
and, okay,
That's
I might cut
horrible.
out this part because it's really upsetting, but, like, when they're carrying the bodies out to the forest, 2 of the daughters were still alive. Like, they realized that they were still alive, so then they had to, like, stab them again. And then finally, like, all 7 of them were dead. It's, like, really awful, like, it's
That's terrible. That's literally so sad. My friend told me that Russian history is depressing. That's horrible. I don't care like what the royal family did. I'm sorry, but that's like not okay to do.
it's not oh my god, it's not excusable at all. It's such a gruesome death, and, they're trying to cover up. They don't want anyone to know what happened. Like, the people killed them, they're like, "No one can ever know what happened to the family." And so this is what's wild is like at first they only told the public that Nicholas II was killed. They didn't say that they just said the rest of the family was still like in prison. And the details of their deaths as well as the locations of their bodies weren't known by the public until the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So like this whole time period, like people didn't know what went down. They were like the family just went missing, and like because of this there were so many rumors that some of the daughters escaped, especially Anastasia, which like there's a whole Disney movie about it, like geez Louise. And a lot of people claim to be like the Romanov children. And like there's like one girl who like was like really famous for like she was like I'm Anastasia, like I had to hide in captivity. But then DNA tests later proved that these claims were false, and like they tested the remains of the bodies, and they're like, no, these are like all the
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Wait, how did they find out where the bodies were later though after the fall of the Soviet Union? Like because I mean, when did the murders happen? Like the 40s, 50s?
No, it was 1918.
So forever ago. So how'd they have record of it? And how'd they find the dead bodies for the DNA test?
Well, I think, okay, if I remember correctly, I think, I guess, like, just people in the government, like, knew, and it was, like, top secret, I don't know, and, like, they just, like, didn't tell the public, so I guess people in the government still knew, but then, like, when they were trying to find the remains of the bodies, they had put the bodies in, like, 2 separate graves to, like, split up the family, so then, like, it'd be harder to find the remains, and I think, like, they had found 1 grave, but it took a lot longer to find the 2nd one, um, yeah, so
This is so sad.
yeah, but now the remains have been collected and they're, like, buried somewhere in Russia in, like, a nice place, but it's it's so depressing. So, Russian history is depressing, but, like, again, the Bolsheviks, so kind of just to wrap everything up, like, the Bolsheviks saw the monarchy as a cancer that made it impossible for the working class to rise. They were like, we there's no way for the peasants to have a better life if there's still a monarchy in place. Ironically, the death of Nicholas II overshadowed Lenin's victories in the Russian Revolution. And so it took up more space in the newspapers. Everyone was focused about the fact that Nicholas II had been killed. And it actually made many Russians yearn for the monarchy. So they're like, even if they didn't like him while he was alive, they felt bad that he had been like murdered. And so it kind of proved to be counterproductive. And but like obviously it had a huge that was the last Russian emperor. There were no more uh like emperors anymore. It's a completely different country now. And so like it went from a monarchy to like the Soviet Union. So um
Yeah. You said that they went for like multiple dynasties, so did they murder the other dynasties?
no,
Like the other bloodlines?
no, I don't know if they like killed other members of like their cousins or anything, but it's like they just ended the Romanov dynasty. So the Romanov dynasty had been ruling for 300 years. Like so this family, like they passed it down from son to son. So after 300 years, like the whole dynasty was put to an end because there's no more heir. So there's no more Romanovs in the world. It's a depressing story, but like, it's just if you think about, like, if you're a Russian like, if you live in Russia at the time, can you imagine how wild this is? Because, like, the revolution, like, takes, like, about a year. There's, like, a big one in February and then a big riot in October. And then you go from, like, monarchy to Soviet Union, and then the Soviet Union collapses later. Like, I don't know, Russian history is just so wild. It's so crazy, like, how much the country has changed in, like, just like 100 years?
Yeah. To be fair, yeah, that's wild. The monarchy was just like 1918. Like that's nothing.
That's
Um,
yeah,
it's literally nothing. It was like yesterday almost. But like hardly 100 years ago. But yeah, I feel like though like the peasants, for lack of a better word, in Russia, like you're more worried about just like how you're gonna get your next meal. So it's hard to like
yeah,
register these changes.
yeah, but then they're like, the Bolsheviks are like, "We're here for the working class people, whether you agree with, like, them or not, like, and whether you think it was successful or not, that's, like, a whole different thing." But it's just, like, a wild time in Russian history.
Hmm.
Um Yeah, and so that's the story of Rasputin and the last Russian emperor. So sorry it like took a depressing turn at the end. I'm gonna try like I'm gonna challenge myself. I need to pick a topic where there is no like death or despair. Like, I don't know.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. I was looking at next topics, and basically all the ones are like wars. So,
Literally.
mm,
So let's maybe next time I'll try to find something. I thought this
yeah.
was more lighthearted, but the ending.
No, this is like that's like the saddest one we've done. Oh my gosh, what?
Because when I started my research, I'm like, I'm just gonna do Rasputin. But like you can't just like end with his death because then like all of Russia changes and
Yeah.
he like he was the one who predicted it. Like not the details, but he was like, "Oh, you guys are gonna be killed if I'm
Oh
gone."
my gosh, scary. Yeah,
Halloween. It's our
yeah, I guess, like, almost Halloween episode.
Oh my god.
Dang. Well, thank you so much, Nat, for covering that. This is probably one of my favorite episodes we have done.
Yeah.
It was funny and sad at the same time. We love a good emotional roller coaster.
Well, thanks for listening. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.